Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Longboard Blues, 1975. YouTubers on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends. But Longboard Blues, 1975.
Hey YouTube, Longboys Post 1975, and welcome back to another nostalgic memories of video. In this video, well, you've read the title, I want to be talking about my first Saturday job and Saturday jobs in general, because I've had, well, two, and they were both the same person and they were both the same job but in different locations. But we'll get to that in a moment. The reason I want to talk about this is, well, mainly because anything I have affection, I fondly remember, I should say, back in the day as a kid, qualifies to be a nostalgic memories of video. Also, my Saturday jobs as a kid were the reason that I could buy all these systems. I could buy loads of Spectrum games, and I was able, to go halvesies with my parents on a Sega Master System for a Christmas present, and then could, buy loads of games for it. It was the reason that I could import a Japanese Mega Drive, the reason I could import a Super Famicom. These all came down to the fact that, well, not just a Saturday job, but that's the job I want to talk about, or jobs, in this video, but weekend jobs. I also worked Friday nights. This is a few years later on. I'm probably sort of in 14, 15, 16 at this point, but Friday nights, then I worked Saturday morning, then I worked Sunday lunchtime, and I was pretty flash with the cash. In fact, this probably only makes sense to anyone in the United Kingdom, but who remembers youth training, where you would go to college for 1 day a week and then you would work the other 4 days a week earning or learning a trade, I should say, and you get something like £38. I mean, come on. Is that abuse or what? But my brother was on it. He was learning to be a chippy. And while he was learning to be a chippy, with my 3 weekend jobs, when I was still at school, I was earning more money a week than him. So, like I said, all the consoles, the fact that this is a retro channel, I have such warm, fuzzy memories of these consoles. All these consoles I could get essentially came from the fact that my parents instilled work ethic into me. Now, the other reason I want to talk about Saturday jobs is, are they still a thing? They were a big deal. I mean, I started technically too young, but in this modern sort of health and safety, politically correct, social justice environment, being, oh my God, that's child abuse. Do children even have Saturday jobs? What does the law even say about Saturday jobs now? I forget what it was for me and my mates back in the day for like newspaper rounds and stuff like that, which I never had, because there was an allowance to be made before and after school or something, and I don't even know how it qualified for pay, but that's all by the way. My dad had a garage. He's retired now. He had 2 garages. The first one was in Silverthorne Lane, which I believe is St George, over the other side of the feeder, which anyone who doesn't come from Bristol, is a river. And it was 3 railway arches. Actually, physically 3 railway arches. And by that, to get some right next to each other, 2 of them had a hole and you could walk through like an arch, like the Bat Cave, so they were physically joined together. But the third one, the first one in this row of arches, there were other people who owned some of these arches, was the body shop that they acquired of someone else. Because it was a mechanical and body repair, body spray sort of garage, so that. But yeah, the first one you had to literally walk onto the road, down the road, and into the second one before you could go through the door and not get wet. I mean, what an inconvenience. But yeah, so to give you some indication of these railway arches, think like your current train carriage. It was the length of, so it could hold one of them comfortably lengthwise with space at the end either side. Not that we had trains in there, it's just I could remember the dimensions, and you could fit 3 in side by side, and obviously because it was an arch, it came down like that. So you'd have limited size on the sides of the room to where you could put stuff before you would hit the curvature of the roof. But yeah, so my dad was a mechanic. He started his first garage down the road from my parents' house in like the 60s and rented a barn. But then he went into business with his brother, and they, rented or leased off the council, I guess, these railway arches, and they called it Archway Auto Engineering. See what they did there? Yeah, and basically they did car repairs and they did MOTs, and then they acquired the third arch and they would do, body repairs and, spraying and stuff like that. And then the kiddie who started off, originally, we're going way back before when I started working there. I'm getting ahead of myself. I am aware of that. Like on a Saturday job, ended up becoming my dad's business partner, and then he took over the third arch and became like the body repair and, body spraying guy. So it's kind of interesting, how it all linked together and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, I don't know. I mean, I first started working for my dad when I was 7. Like I said, I don't know the legality of it. So that would have been 1982. So that'll give you an indication when I explain these railway arches. Now, utterly primal and medieval they will sound in conditions, but keep in mind it's 1982. It's 38 years ago. It's 12 years shy of half a century. Christ, I feel old. So, for whatever reason, I don't know. I think it was, both my brothers, my twin brother, my older brother, they didn't have Saturday jobs for years, literally years after this. So I don't know why, if it was because I was more interested in cars, or as interested in cars as you could be when you're 7, i.e. pushing Matchbox toys around the carpet while making vroom vroom noises and watching stuff like Knight Rider and Dukes of Hazzard and thinking it was bloody cool. That would be interested in cars, I guess. But so my dad said that I could come in, to work with him on a Saturday. On a Saturday, he'd get there for 8 o'clock in the morning and work to 12 midday, which so Saturdays is standard then, which we should go back to these times, half day. And so I was obviously at school. I was in primary at this point, and obviously when you're really, really young, you don't really care about having a lie-in on the Saturday. The job kind of bit me in the ass when I became a teenager. Obvious reasons. I'm a teenager. I hate you. You're not my real parents. I want to sleep for the rest of my life. But so and he said, come in. You can sweep each arch, we'll have something to eat, a cup of tea or orange squash, and, you can see what Daddy does. And, I'll give you 50p for every arch you sweep. And that was a big deal. Now, you were thinking, 50? Whoa, Dave, £1.50. A quid back then, taking into account inflation now, would be £3. So I was like £4.50 of spending power back then. But think about it. I used to get pocket money off my parents, as did both my brothers. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't very much. But £1.50 in 1982 was a friggin' big deal. That gave me spending power. I could get the Beano every week. Later on, I could get 2000 AD every week. I could save up a bit. I could get a Beano book at Christmas. I could buy ZX Spectrum games, my beloved ZX Spectrum. This is before we worked out how to tape. I could buy games because I was getting £1.50 a week. Trust me, when you're 7, that's a big deal. And also, I think part of this as well, because my parents, having 3 boys is very, very expensive, especially back then. So Christmas, birthdays, particularly Christmas when all 3 of them came in at once, would really take a crunch out of their wallet. But also they firmly believed in teaching children the value of money. So if we wanted anything moderately expensive, we would have to pay for half of it. So they were always determined to teach us the value of money. You see some people these days and they spoil their kids so much, and I mean right up to the age of 16, 17 and 18, and you think, oh dear God, you're not doing them any favours when they go to school, college, and then eventually end up in the workplace because you've just spoiled the crap out of them. They think everything comes on a tap, have no appreciation of the value of money. They are not mentally equipped to exist in the modern workplace world, real world period. They'll be like blood in the water to a shark. And my parents didn't want us to be like that. So that might be, not just because I like cars, also somewhere in where, why don't you go to work with your dad? You can earn a little bit of pocket money. Might be because we just got a ZX Spectrum actually, and I wanted to play games all the time. But I can still remember these arches. They're still there. They're owned by someone else now. And by the way, these were called the Arches before Phil Mitchell's garage in EastEnders. So that shit came second. This is the original Arches. And yes, my dad's bald. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, the first one, it was basically, you go in, there was a tiny office on the left-hand side, and there was a coffee machine. Amazing, but this was a few years later because they didn't have this arch originally, so probably didn't have that sequence, but man, never mind. And yeah, you'd have an office, you go in, no computers, everything was books, notepads, phone books like that. All the cash was done in a tin that went in a safe in the floor. It was, yeah, wow. And those machines, I forget what they're called. You used to get them in libraries, you still get them in libraries, where stuff comes printed on a glass plate and you shine a light up through it and you have a joystick which is essentially just moving around a metal clamp that holds the glass plate that was interchangeable, and you'd look at the screen and it will give you part numbers and stuff like that. Had one of those in there, had one of those in each three arches. But yeah, and then to right of this, there was a big chest log full of nothing but newspapers and magazines. And yeah, once upon a time, we even found Nog in there. Not when I was 8 though. And it had like a plastic curtains that you could fence off, and an extractor fan so you could spray cars. And that was, I swept up in there. I wanted my 50p, I wanted my cash, but I never really, did anything else in there. Because I started doing more things the older I got. Guess the taller I got, the longer leg reach I had, because these were motor, repair garages. And then the next one, you would go in and there was a tiny little door on the left-hand side, like literally, because the front of it was a massive wooden door arch like that. You'd open this one, you'd go in, and then you'd open the arch, big door from the inside. On the inside, on the left, there was a sink, one sink for both these arches that would join together, a drain and a bucket. Now, when I said medieval, you're pissed in the bucket, because it's 1982. Who plumbed in a working toilet into a railway arch that was only ever intended for train storage? And then you tipped it down the drain. But hey, did that in my caravan. We had no toilet in the caravan. It's the 80s in England, trust me. It was archaic, but good fun. And but it did have electricity, obviously, and that was at the front. And you turn around, you walk up, and then there would be one ramp like this. Door would be here. It'd be one car ramp, so you could move a car up and do your repairs on the bottom and stuff like that. And then you go up a bit further on the right. There'd be various snap-on toolboxes and stuff like that. I can still smell it. It's just smell of oil, grease, and Swarthega. Swarthega. Who remembers that? Points. And then at the right, at the top, before you went to the door that went through to the other arch, opposite that on the left, there was a second ramp, orchestrating the ramps like that so you could get two cars into the first arch to work at any one time, was like literally, trains, conducting trains. But yeah, before you went through the door, there was this table, there were 3 chairs, there was a kettle, because as I said, I did this out of sequence. The first arch that had a coffee machine, that coffee machine, we pushed a button, you put your money in, you pushed a button, the cup fell down with the coffee in it, and then you put it under the water and went like that. That was relatively later on, but yeah. So this is where we ate. This was all mod cons. You didn't have microwaves in 1982. You could barely afford one to stick in your house. So that ping is my chicken burger, by the way, not the clocks. So yeah, we had a grill, and this was something else. See, when you're a kid and you're working with your dad, getting up, 7:30 on a Saturday morning, which was easy when you're 8, like I said, or 7. And then, your mum making you cheese, this is true, cheese and Marmite sandwiches, and giving you an apple and a flask of orange squash, and your dad, well, he didn't have a flask because he had a kettle. It wasn't work. It wasn't even really about the money. It was an adventure. It was going to work with your dad. It was exciting. Driving half an hour into Bristol, parking up opposite these railway arches, and then doing what to you, because 4 hours then to a kid was a bloody long time. Like a hard day's graft, sweeping up all this stuff. I'm not saying they never swept up, by the way. They did, but it was to get a start on the start of the week, because obviously no one worked on a Sunday, but sweeping up like this, shoveling up. I remember the piles of crap he used to sweep up, friggin' huge, and there'd be nuts, bolts, bits of wire and stuff like that in there. You had to be really, really careful, but obviously health and safety was out the window in 1982, even though I was 7, and we weren't all pussies back then, like most modern kids are these days. Sorry, modern kids, just calling it as I see it. But going back to, they didn't have a microwave, we had a grill, so we'd have grilled cheese and Marmite sandwiches for lunch. Well, I say lunch, you'd have it at about 10:30, so there's an hour and a half to go before you closed. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. You went into the next railway arch, and there was an office at the end of the room, much the same primitive equipment, phone, one of those big calculators, the roll of paper that came out, the adding machine like that, one of those machines where you could look around on print, stuff printed on glass, a fan heater at the bottom. That was the only heat in this office, and it got bitterly cold in winter, absolutely bitterly cold. Touching metal and stuff like that. I mean, your dad would ask you to get tools and stuff and not thinking it through, and touching metal when it was like -2. Oh, I remember those days. Made a man out of you. And then there was a room next to it that was the waiting room and pile of magazines that were probably from the 70s, even though it was 1982, for people to read. And this is where the MOT stuff was done. The MOT repairs were done on the two ramps. The MOTs were done over a pit because you needed the ramps to always be free so you could work on cars, but the pit, because you walk down a pit with two jacks on it, so you could pick the car up and stuff like that and do all the tests, and stuff like that. Yeah, it was brilliant. There's oil at the bottom of it like that. It was claustrophobic. Shit would drip on you from the top of the car. But yeah, real men did all their servicing and shit like that in pits. But that was it. That's where you did your MOTs to free up that. And this it was funny because as I got a bit older, this blew my mind. I think it might have been sort of 9, 10, 11. Because I grew, I grew, so I could reach the pedals of the cars that we did. There was a couple of arc welders, MIG welders and stuff like that around in this place, and things like that. And obviously there was water taps and stuff this side as well, but no drain. But you would use hoses to wash the cars after you MOT'd them, because you used to wash, and chamois every car. No, I used to wash and chamois every car. Got 50p a car for doing that as well. So my wages started to go up. Wash and chamois every car after an MOT, and put an air freshener in, because there's little things that help, and that would just go straight into the drains on the road. But so I remember once I got a little bit, sort of taller and stuff like that, and so they could free up blokes, because it was initially it was Rob, like the guy who ended up in the paint shop. Then it was my dad's brother. Then there was another guy who worked every other Saturday. I can't remember, it's Lee or something. And so it freed them up to work on cars if I could do the MOTs with my old man, because there's no restriction for who sits in the car, because you're not driving the car on the road. So a 10-year-old can get in the car, press the pedals, do the light switches and stuff like that, rock the steering wheel, check the seatbelts and everything like that. But the best thing ever, especially when you're 10, I'm probably 12 at this point, but it's still a big deal, is letting you drive the car over the pit and your old man standing at the end going, and knowing if you fucked it up, not only do you probably really hurt yourself, but you're going to write off someone's fucking car. And then they tell you to stop when you're over the jacking point and he jack you up. That was such a huge deal as a kid. That was mind-blowing. It's like, my old man trusts me. Look at me. I'm a fucking grown-up. Oh, brilliant. And I got paid 50p per art, so that was £1.50. Then I got paid 50p for every MOT I did. Standard MOT would take about half an hour. So sometimes we could do 6. So I get £3. So I was getting like 6, sometimes pushing, with washing the cars. £7. £7. So when I was in 1989, that was huge money. And this is when I'm in Master System Mega Drive territory. And this is how, I bought all these Japanese games. This is how I had a huge Mega Drive collection. I had a huge Master System collection, because I was earning £6. £6 a Saturday morning. Now, at this point, because I'm becoming a teenager, I'm not going to talk about the other jobs because it's about Saturday jobs in this video, but I started earning proper money because I would wait on tables in the pub down the road from my parents' house the night before. So I'd be working till 11 o'clock at night and then still getting up at 7:30, which for a teenager is like... Yeah, I used to ride there, ride back as fast as I can, because I could catch the second half of Cheers on Channel 4, and that's how I became introduced to Cheers and love it. Then on Sunday, I would wash up from 12 o'clock to about 4 o'clock. So I think at some point I was earning like £45 a weekend, but I just want to put in perspective that we're reaching the territory. I'm not going to talk about these jobs anymore, but we're reaching the territory where I'm a teenager, sleep's important, and I was pissing away my whole weekend. But it didn't matter, because it was swings and roundabouts. What I lost, in time at the weekend, obviously I still had some time for myself, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, because you didn't have to get to the pub on Sunday morning super early. But I gained back in the fact that I had money to spend on, videos, video recorders, because, I had one in my room, TV in my room, all these games. So swings and roundabouts. Plus it taught me, the value of money. But now, at this point, I don't know what happened, but they fell out or something like this. But my dad and his brother went separate ways, and so they divided up the business, in the money and stuff like that. And that's where auto engineering stayed with my uncle. And then my dad bought the lease for Bedminster Road Garage, which he retired from in 2006. And we're on such good terms with them now. They do all our MOTs and all our repairs and charge us trade. Awesome. And it was kind of a cool big deal as well, because now at this point it's 1992. 91, when we came back from America, was when I first started working there, and he just acquired it, and it was 10 minutes from my parents' house, so it made, getting there, because Archway was on the other side of Bristol, but I'm a proper teenager now. I'm in my last few years of school, 15, 16. So I still did this when I was doing all my studying and stuff like that, and I did all right in my GCSEs. When people say they can't have a Saturday job now, or weekend jobs now, because it's going to ruin their school, the schooling, I say bollocks. But this was really, really cool, because I was learning to drive and we had a whole car park. It would be chuck me the keys, I'd go and get the car, drive it around the car park, over the pit and stuff like that. He let me do more stuff. He helped me do some of the let me do some of the welding, show me how to do it, things like that. Teach me rudimentary sort of mechanics of cars and stuff like that. Mainly so I wouldn't use him, as he knew when I started to drive, as his AA. So, roadside recovery, although we are pre-mobile phones at this point, so I'm not sure how that would work. But, oil changes, stuff like that. And I loved it. Not so much getting up early in the morning, but then he would be paying, when I'm 16, pay me like 10, 15 pounds, for the morning's work. I would sweep up as well, still. That was, a prime thing, even though I was like a young adult at this point. I'd still have to sweep up. Still get, I get a quid an MOT like this. But I and with the other two jobs, I was earning big money, but it was all the sort of responsibility and the things he taught me, and basic car sort of repair and, maintenance and things like that I absolutely loved. It, like I said, and I've been working with my dad, at the weekends at this point for so long, and just, we've just made it such a good relationship and stuff like that. And we had a waiting room, a coffee machine in here, but we had a microwave, because we were living the friggin' dream, man. And these were like, because this is before, when I went to college, so, time, of not having to go out and work in the real world 5 days a week was running thin. But I guess you could argue this is something else as well. I guess he knew he was preparing me for it. But again, this place was bitterly cold in the winter. But unlike Archway, which I forgot to mention, this had a big, fat, oil-powered boiler that if you shut two doors, because there were two doors, and I could have taken pictures of this, but I couldn't be asked to drive to these places. There was a ramp on the left next to a big fat upright workstation computer. I think it was a 386 essentially, but it was a tuning station, and that was where you tuned it, but you could put a car on a ramp, and then if that ramp was up, you could drive in underneath it. Again, it was like conducting trains, and there was a second ramp for MOT repairs. Then on the first door, once again, you'd go in and there would be a pit where you do your physical MOTs, and then you'd have a waiting room in the office. Still no computer. But who needs a fucking computer? Come on, it's a luxury even now. But yeah, I can tell I got such memories of this. And then I did this all the way up to the end of college, because people in my college would get allowances from their parents, so they would have money to spend when they were at college. And I just thought, what the fuck? Even me then, like, what the fuck? Not as in I'm jealous, but Christ, you're adults now. Earn your own bloody money. So I was still doing this, the other two jobs, to earn my own money for it. But also, I was loving it and still managed to get decent results at college, while working these three jobs. But the best thing I remember about this location was Bedminster Road. Garage was on Bedminster Road. There's a surprise. I could literally just walk to Broadmead. So instead of coming home with my dad, when we closed at 12, I would walk with my wages, so I always had cash, to Broadmead, go and see a movie. I often by myself at this point, because, my mates didn't have the money. I did. And obviously meeting them up was difficult. But yeah, walk to, Broadmead, go in the Virgin Megastore, buy games, buy magazines, have a McDonald's or a Wimpy, see a movie, and then catch the bus home. And that was my whole Saturday those days. And it just felt fucking awesome. All right, yeah, I'm 16 at this point, but fucking awesome. Loved it. I absolutely loved it. You know what? Like I said, do kids even have Saturday jobs anymore? I honestly don't know. By all means, correct me on that one, but I really do I think it should be the law that every child has to have a Saturday job to teach them some responsibility, set them up for work, basically, and teach them the value of money. But I had nostalgia for it because it was never a job, particularly more so when I was really, really young. It was an adventure. It was like, going off for the day with your dad, and you wanted to be your dad when you were that young and seeing what he did, and you felt like you were a big man in the big, wide world workplace. have so much, nostalgia and warm memories for this. I cannot tell you. And that's why I wanted to do this video. So anyway, as always, I'd love to know what you think, particularly if you're old, my generation like me. Gotta stop saying, particularly if you're old. Did you have a Saturday job? Did you have any jobs at the weekend? What did you do is what I'd love to know most. And what did you take from it? And, would you change it for the world? Anyway, kind of got away from me a bit, this one, but it was important that I've been wanting to do this one for absolutely ages. And sorry, I'm a bit bunged up and sick. But don't worry, it's not coronavirus. But anyway, you can't catch that through the computer, so chill your shit. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.